the city of Ashbourne Heights, had never seen a wedding like this. Not because of love, but because of power. Every window of the Marowak Grand Hall reflected gold. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars. Cameras lined the red carpet. Politicians whispered beside billionaires. Old money sat straighter than new money. This was not a wedding. It was a coronation. At the center of it all stood Elias Corvin, 32, self-made tech magnate, the youngest man to acquire 3 Fortune-level companies before 30. The press called him America's quiet king because Elias never smiled for cameras, never defended himself in scandals, never explained his rise. Today he wore white, not the innocent kind but the expensive kind. Italian silk, custom tailoring, a man dressed for a future that had already been negotiated. He was about to marry Serafina Veilcrest. She was royalty in everything but title, old East Coast lineage, blue blood. Her family's influence could end political careers with a phone call. The union was perfect on paper and empty everywhere else. Elias adjusted his cufflinks as applause echoed through the hall. His reflection in the mirror looked calm, almost detached. No nerves, no joy, no fear, because his heart had already been buried once, 5 years ago, with Nya Reid. No one at this wedding knew that name. Not the press, not Serafina, not even Elias' closest advisors. Because Nya belonged to a chapter of his life he had sealed shut, back when he was still building, still failing, still sleeping in offices and eating instant noodles at 3 a.m. back when love felt real because money was. Nya had been there before the headlines, before the power, before the invitations written in gold. She was the woman who believed in him when belief was expensive. And she was gone. The orchestra shifted into a softer note. The officiant cleared his throat. Guests leaned forward. The doors at the far end of the hall began to open. Everyone assumed it was Serafina. Then the air changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. A hush crept through the room like a held breath. Elias felt it before he saw it. A pressure in his chest. A memory waking up where it had no right to be. He turned, and the world tilted. She stood there still composed, unannounced. Nya Reid, wearing black. Not mourning black. Not revenge black. The kind of black that doesn't ask for permission. Her hair was pulled back simply. No jewelry except one thing. On her left hand, a ring. His ring. The engagement ring he had given her in a tiny apartment, when he had nothing but a vision and a promise. The same ring he had searched for after she vanished. The same ring he believed was lost forever. Gasps rippled through the hall. Cameras froze. Security hesitated, confused by her confidence. Nya's eyes met Elias. No anger, no pleading, just truth. Serafina turned slowly, her smile fading. "What is this?" she whispered. Elias couldn't answer, because for the first time in years, the man who controlled markets, media, and men had lost control of the moment. Nya took one step forward, and the past walked back into the room. Silence ruled the hall. Not the awkward kind, the dangerous kind, the kind where a single breath sounds like a confession. Nya Reid stood beneath the chandeliers as if she belonged there, not as a guest, not as an interruption, but as a truth no one had prepared for. Security finally moved. 2 men in black suits stepped forward, hands hovering near their earpieces. One of them cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you're not on the guest list." Nya didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Elias. The ring on her finger caught the light again, soft, undeniable. The same ring Elias had chosen with trembling hands in a downtown jewelry store years ago. The one he'd bought with borrowed money and blind faith. "I'm not here as a guest," Nya said calmly. Her voice was steady, warm, familiar. "I'm here as history." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Serafina's mother leaned toward her father, whispering urgently. Investors exchanged glances. Phones slowly reappeared. This was becoming a moment money could not stop. Elias finally moved. One step forward. His chest felt tight, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. "Nya," he said, barely audible. She tilted her head slightly. "You remember how to say my name," she replied. "That's good." Serafina turned fully toward Elias now, confusion hardening into something sharper. "You know her?" she asked. Elias opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence answered louder than any confession. Nya finally looked around the hall, at the wealth, the power, the spectacle. Wow, she said softly, you really made it. Not admiration, not bitterness, observation. She took another step forward. Security hesitated again, unsure who had authority anymore. I wasn't sure I'd recognize you, Nya continued, her eyes never leaving Elia's. But then I saw the ring. She lifted her hand slightly. You always said you hated jewelry, she said. But this one mattered. Elia swallowed, his voice cracked. I thought you were gone. Nya's expression shifted, not angry, not sad. Resolved. I was, she said, for a long time. Serafina's patience snapped. Enough, she said sharply. Who are you and why are you wearing his ring? Nya turned to her then, slowly, respectfully. My name is Nya Reed, she said, and I was engaged to Elias Corvin 5 years ago, before the money, before the power, before this wedding. Gasps exploded this time. Serafina stiffened. That's impossible. Nya smiled faintly. It always sounds that way when the past knocks. Elias felt memories flood back. The nights Nya stayed awake while he coded. The way she believed before there was proof. The ring sliding onto her finger as he promised her forever. You disappeared, Elias said hoarsely. You left without a word. Nya's jaw tightened. I didn't disappear, she said quietly. I was erased. The word landed heavy. She reached into her coat, not dramatically, not threateningly, and pulled out a folded envelope. I came today for one reason, she said. Not to stop a wedding, not to beg, not to reclaim anything. She looked at Elias one last time. I came to return what you were never meant to lose, and to expose what was stolen from both of us. She placed the envelope on the altar. The officiant stepped back, shaken. What's in that? Elias asked. Nya's eyes glistened, but her voice did not break. The truth about why I vanished, she said, and who made sure you never looked for me. The hall felt smaller now. Trapped. Nya took a step back. This is your moment, Elias, she said softly. Decide what kind of king you really are. She turned toward the exit. Behind her, Serafina stood frozen. Elias stood shattered, and a wedding built on silence began to crack. Make sure to like and subscribe our channel to get more storytelling like this. No one moved. Not the guests, not the musicians, not even the cameras. Nya's footsteps echoed as she walked toward the doors. Slow, controlled, final. That sound broke Elias. Wait. The word slipped out before he could stop it. Nya paused. She didn't turn around immediately, as if she needed to decide whether he deserved even that. Serafina's hand tightened around her bouquet. Her knuckles went white. Elias, she said sharply, this is insane. Tell security to remove her. Elias didn't look at Serafina. He was staring at the envelope on the altar. White, simple, unbranded, yet heavier than every contract he had ever signed. Please, Elias said again, louder this time. Nya, don't leave. A low murmur spread through the hall. The quiet king was begging on his wedding day. Nya finally turned. Her eyes weren't angry. They were tired. You already let me go once, she said. I won't beg you to hold on now. Elias reached for the envelope. Serafina stepped forward instantly. No, she snapped. Whatever game this is, it ends now. Nya laughed softly. Not mockery, not joy. Sadness. This isn't a game, she said. It's a correction. She gestured toward the envelope. Open it. The officiant looked between them, unsure. The crowd leaned in as if drawn by gravity. Elias broke the seal. Inside were documents, old, worn, real. Photos, emails, bank transfers, and one medical report. His hands began to shake. What is this? Serafina demanded. Elias didn't answer, because he was staring at a scanned hospital form dated 5 years ago. Patient Nya Reed. Diagnosis: acute cardiac condition, emergency surgery required. His breath caught. I didn't know, he whispered. You were never meant to, Nya said. Elias flipped through the pages faster now. There were emails sent from his own account. Nya doesn't want to see you anymore. She's moved on. Please respect her decision. Emails he had never written. Then the bank records. Large transfers, offshore accounts. His eyes lifted slowly. To Serafina's father. The man stood stiff, jaw tight, face unreadable. Nya spoke calmly, but every word cut deep. When I collapsed, your future father-in-law was already watching you, she said. Your company, your potential, your weakness. Serafina shook her head. That's a lie. Nya didn't even look at her. He paid for my surgery, Nya continued. Saved my life, and then he made an offer. The hall felt frozen in time. What offer? Elias asked, his voice breaking. Nya swallowed. Disappear, she said. Leave you forever, no explanation, no goodbye. She lifted her hand, the ring glinting. In exchange, I would live, and you would rise, unburdened by someone who didn't belong in your new world. Elias felt sick. I would have chosen you, he whispered. Nya nodded. I know. That hurt more than anger ever could. Serafina's father finally spoke. You were an obstacle, he said coldly. Emotional attachments destroy empires. Serafina turned on him. Dad, tell me this isn't true. He said nothing. Silence answered her. Elias felt something inside him crack, not loudly but permanently. Nya took a step back toward the door. I kept the ring, she said, not because I wanted you back, but because I wanted to remember who you were before power taught you silence. Tears streamed down Serafina's face now. So what happens now? She whispered. Nya looked at her, not with hatred but honesty. That depends, she said, turning to Elias, on whether you choose the crown or the truth. Elias looked around the hall. At the empire, at the deal, at the woman he was supposed to marry, at the woman he had already lost once. And for the first time the king had to choose. The silence didn't break. It pressed, like the walls themselves were waiting for Elias Corvin to speak, to declare which lie would survive. Serafina's breath came uneven now. Tears clung to her lashes, but her spine stayed straight. She had been raised for rooms like this. Public collapse was not an option. This is absurd, she said finally, her voice sharp with control. A staged ambush. Documents can be forged. Stories can be bought. Her eyes cut to Nya. You think one dramatic entrance can dismantle decades of legacy? Nya didn't flinch. Legacy, she asked quietly, or leverage? Serafina turned to her father. Say something. The man adjusted his cufflinks, calm, calculated. What's there to say? He replied. I protected an investment. Elias snapped his head up. An investment. His voice echoed raw, unfamiliar. You, the man said plainly. Your talent, your future. Your company needed distance from complications. Nya closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them. That complication was a woman who loved him before he was valuable, she said. The words struck harder than any accusation. Elias felt the room tilt again. He looked at Serafina. She wasn't looking at Nya anymore. She was looking at him. You knew? Elias asked her softly. Did you know? Serafina hesitated. Just a fraction, but it was enough. Her silence answered him. You knew, he said, disbelief cracking his voice. She stepped forward. I knew pieces, she admitted. I didn't ask for details. Nya smiled faintly. No one ever does, when the outcome benefits them. Serafina's composure finally fractured. So what? You expect him to walk away from everything because of a story from the past? Nya met her gaze. No, I expect him to see it. Elias' hands clenched. 5 years of unanswered nights. 5 years of believing abandonment was his fault. 5 years of building an empire on a wound that never healed. All engineered. He looked at the guests, people who applauded power but would abandon truth the moment it became inconvenient. Then he looked at Nya, standing alone, unprotected, still dignified. Why now? He asked hoarsely. Why come back today? Nya inhaled slowly. Because today, she said, was the day your life would be locked forever. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I didn't come to steal you from her, she said. I came to give you one last choice. Serafina laughed bitterly. And if he chooses you? Nya shook her head. That's not the choice, she said. The choice is whether he keeps building on a lie. Elias felt something shift. Not courage, not certainty, but clarity. He turned to the officiant. Step aside. Gasps tore through the hall. Serafina grabbed his arm. Elias, don't do this. He gently removed her hand. I already did, he said quietly. 5 years ago, I just didn't know it. He walked to Nya, close enough now to see the scar near her collarbone, the one he had never known existed. You survived, he whispered. Barely, she replied, but I lived. He nodded, then turned to the crowd. This wedding, Elias said, his voice steady, is postponed. Chaos erupted. Voices rose, phones lifted, deals shattered in real time. Serafina stood frozen. You're choosing her? She asked, disbelief flooding her face. Elias shook his head slowly. No, he said, I'm choosing the truth. Nya stepped back. This is where I leave, she said softly. Elias looked at her, startled. You're not staying. She smiled sadly. I didn't come back to be rescued, she said. I came back to be heard. She turned toward the doors once more. This time, Elias didn't stop her, because he knew the next time they met, it wouldn't be in a palace of lies. Behind them, the crown had started to burn. The doors closed behind Nya. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to echo. And when they did, the illusion shattered. The orchestra stopped mid-note. Conversations exploded at once. Advisors rushed toward Elias. Security scrambled to control the narrative. Phones were already uploading, headlines writing themselves in real time. Serafina didn't move. She stood at the altar like a statue, carved from pride and disbelief. You humiliated us, her father said quietly to Elias, stepping closer. You humiliated me. Elias turned to him slowly. No, he said, you exposed yourself. The man's eyes hardened. You think truth matters more than power. Elias answered without hesitation. I think power built on lies always collapses. Serafina finally spoke. Her voice was soft now, controlled but broken underneath. You knew she would come, she said, didn't you? Elias shook his head. No, but I always knew something was missing. She laughed bitterly. So this is it. 5 years of planning, gone because a ghost walked in wearing a ring. Elias met her gaze. She was never a ghost, she was buried. That landed hard. Serafina turned away, wiping her tears quickly. You'll regret this, she said. You just destroyed alliances that take generations to build. Elias watched her walk away, and for the first time, the cost didn't scare him. Hours later, the hall was empty. No flowers, no guests, no vows. Just Elias sitting alone on the edge of the altar steps. His jacket discarded, tie loosened, empire shaking. His phone buzzed endlessly. Board members, investors, media. He ignored them all. Instead, he opened the envelope again. This time, he read every page slowly. The medical report, the forged emails, the money trail. Proof, not just of manipulation, but of how easily love had been traded for control. He closed his eyes. Find her, he said quietly to his head of security who had stayed behind. Not to bring her back, just to make sure she's safe. The man nodded and left. Night fell. Ashbourne Heights glittered outside the tall windows. Beautiful, cold, indifferent. Elias stood and walked to the window. 5 years ago, he had chosen ambition over confusion. Today, he chose truth over comfort. And both choices cost him everything. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a message. Unknown number. You don't have to follow me. Just don't forget me again. No name. No signature. But he knew. Elias sank into the chair, emotion finally breaking through the armor. The wedding was over, but the story was. Because sometimes, losing the crown is the first step toward becoming human again. The city didn't care. By morning, Ashbourne Heights had already moved on. Markets opened, traffic roared, deals resumed. But Elias Corvin's world remained suspended. Headlines flooded every screen. Tech tycoon cancels wedding hours before vows. Secret ex-engagement. SHOCKSVALICRST alliance. Who is Nya Reed? He didn't read them. Instead, he sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the phone in his hand. That message, don't forget me again. 4 words, and yet they carried 5 years of silence. Elias typed, where are you? The message stayed unsent. Because he knew, this wasn't about location, it was about distance. Across the city, Nya stood in a small apartment overlooking a river that didn't glitter. It moved, steady, honest, unimpressed by wealth. She placed the ring on the table, staring at it for a long moment, not as a symbol of longing, but as a reminder of survival. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't answer. Instead, she poured herself a glass of water, hands trembling slightly for the first time since the wedding. Strength had limits. Memories didn't. That night, Elias did something no one expected. He resigned. Not publicly, not with a speech. Quietly, emails sent, authority delegated, control released. His board panicked, stock dipped, advisors begged. But Elias felt lighter than he had in years. Because for the first time, his life wasn't being negotiated by ghosts. 3 days later, he found her. Not through security, not through power, through patience. A coffee shop near the river. No cameras, no entourage. Just Nya sitting by the window reading. He didn't approach immediately. He watched, the way she turned pages slowly, the way she exhaled between paragraphs. Alive. Finally, he stepped forward. "Hi," he said. Nia looked up. No shock, no fear, just recognition. "I wondered how long it would take," she said. "I didn't want to chase you," Elias replied. "I wanted to deserve the conversation." She closed the book. "That's new," she said. "I'm new," he answered quietly. They sat in silence. "Not awkward. Earned. Why didn't you tell me?" he asked finally. "About the surgery, the deal." Nia looked out at the river. "Because love shouldn't come with ultimatums," she said. "And I didn't want to be the reason you chose pain." Elias' voice broke. "I would have chosen you." She met his eyes. "And you still might have lost everything," she said, "including yourself." A long pause. "I didn't come back for us," Nia continued. "I came back for closure." Elias nodded. "I know." He slid something across the table. "The ring. I don't want this to own you anymore," he said. Nia stared at it, then pushed it back gently. "It never owned me," she said, "but I'm not ready to let it go." He accepted that, because healing doesn't move on command. As they stood to leave, Nia stopped. "There's something you should know," she said. "The man who paid for my surgery, he's not done." Elias stiffened. "What do you mean?" Nia's voice dropped. "He doesn't lose investments," she said. "He destroys them." Elias looked toward the city skyline. For the first time, the enemy had a face, and the next battle wouldn't be fought in public halls, but in the quiet spaces between truth and revenge. The retaliation began quietly. It always did. One board member resigned, then another, then a major investor paused funding. No statements, no accusations, just pressure. Elias watched the numbers fall on his laptop without flinching. This wasn't panic. It was confirmation. "They're tightening the circle," his former legal advisor warned him over a private call. "Veilcrest influence runs deep. Banking, media, regulatory offices. You're exposed." Elias closed the laptop. "Good," he said. "Let them show their hand." Across the city, Nia felt it too. Not in markets but in shadows. Her landlord suddenly needed the apartment vacated. A job offer vanished without explanation. Her bank account was flagged for review. Patterns don't lie. She called Elias that night. "I think he's coming for me," she said. Elias didn't hesitate. "Come stay somewhere safe." Nia exhaled slowly. "No," she said, "that's what he expects." She paused. "I didn't survive to hide again." The next morning, a story broke. Former tech CEO under federal review. SOURCES claim misconduct. Lies. Carefully placed. Legally ambiguous. Reputation poison. Elias smiled grimly. "He's scared," he murmured. Nia met Elias later that day. Not in private. In public. A small press conference room. Independent journalists only. No corporate media. Nia stepped to the podium first. "I was told silence would protect me," she said calmly. It didn't. She told everything. The collapse. The surgery. The deal. The manipulation. Names included. Documents displayed. The room went still. Then erupted. Questions fired. Cameras flashed. Truth began to move. That night, Elias received a call. "Blocked number. You're making a mistake," the voice said smoothly. "You were built to rule, not rebel." Elias leaned back in his chair. "You forgot something," he replied. "I built myself." The line went dead. Hours later, federal subpoenas landed, not on Elias. On Veilcrest Holdings. Serafina watched the news alone in her penthouse, realization dawning too late. Her father had overplayed, and now the empire that taught Elias silence was learning a new language. Nia stood beside Elias as they watched the city lights. "Whatever happens," she said, "this doesn't end with us." Elias nodded. "No," he said, "it ends with accountability." For the first time, they weren't running from the past. They were standing in front of it, unarmed, unhidden, and unafraid. The backlash was immediate. Not loud, not violent, strategic. Sponsors pulled contracts overnight. Speaking invitations vanished. Banking privileges were temporarily restricted. Punishment without fingerprints. Nia felt it most when the hospital called. "The donor fund that covered your follow-up care has been withdrawn," the administrator said apologetically. "We'll need alternative arrangements." Nia hung up slowly. Elias saw her face change. "They're trying to bleed you out," he said. Nia shook her head. "No," she replied. "They're reminding me what truth costs." That night, Serafina finally called. Her voice sounded smaller. "You destroyed everything," she said. Elias didn't argue. "I know." A long pause. "My father is under investigation," she whispered. "Our accounts are frozen. People are disappearing." Elias closed his eyes. "This wasn't meant to hurt you," he said, "but it had to stop." Serafina laughed softly, broken, bitter. "You always choose the hard way," she said. "That's why he was afraid of you." She hung up. Days passed. The media cycle turned savage. Nya's past was dissected. Her childhood questioned. Her motives doubted. She wants money. She wants revenge. She wants fame. She read none of it. Instead, she volunteered at a small community clinic. Anonymous, unpaid. Healing others reminded her she was more than a headline. Elias watched from a distance. He didn't step in, didn't shield her. He respected her choice to stand alone. One evening, as they walked by the river again, Nya stopped. "Do you ever wish you never met me?" she asked quietly. Elias answered without hesitation. "No," he said. "I wish I fought harder to keep you." She nodded. "That's different," she said, "and it matters." A week later, the first indictment dropped. Not public yet, but real. Vailcrest Senior Holdings. Financial coercion. Obstruction. The man who moved empires was finally cornered. Nya stood in front of the courthouse steps the day it broke. Not smiling, not celebrating, just present. "This isn't victory," she told reporters. "It's accountability." Elias watched her from across the street. In that moment, he realized something painful and pure. He didn't need to save her. He needed to walk beside her. And maybe, if the truth survived long enough, there could be something new. Not a crown, not a ring, but trust. The world moved on. Another scandal replaced theirs. Another villain filled the headlines. Another story distracted the public. But truth doesn't disappear when attention does. It waits. Months passed. The Vailcrest empire collapsed quietly, asset by asset, account by account. No dramatic arrest. No public spectacle. Just doors closing where they once opened effortlessly. Serafina left the city. No farewell. No statement. Just absence. Elias rebuilt, not an empire but a life. Smaller office, fewer employees, transparent books, no shadows. Nya returned to school. Medicine. The irony wasn't lost on her. She studied late nights, scars visible only to herself. The woman once erased by power now learning how to save lives. Elias never interfered. He showed up. Coffee on hard mornings, silence when she needed it, presence without pressure. One evening, as winter crept in, they sat in the same coffee shop where everything had shifted. Nya slid something across the table. The ring. Elias looked at it surprised. "I'm ready," she said. He didn't touch it immediately. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It means I'm done carrying the past," she replied. "Not erasing it, just not letting it define me." Elias nodded slowly. "I don't want to own you," he said, "or the future." Nya smiled. "Good," she said. "Neither do I." She picked up the ring and dropped it into her bag. Not discarded. Retired. Outside, snow began to fall. Soft, quiet, unannounced. Elias stopped walking. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Nya turned. "Are we?" he hesitated. She stepped closer. "We are whatever we choose to build," she said. Slowly, honestly. He exhaled. That night, Elias received one final message. "Unknown number. You won." He deleted it without replying, because winning was never the point. What remained was harder. Trust without guarantees. Love without ownership. A future without crowns. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The room was quiet now. Not the kind of silence that comes from fear, but the kind that follows truth. Elias stood beside Nya at the front of the small hall. No luxury. No spectacle, just people who mattered, friends, witnesses, lives touched by their stand. Nya's hand was steady in his. Months of pressure, loss, public judgment, all of it led here. A single step forward. Elias looked at the faces before him, then back at Nya. His voice was calm, grounded, unshaken. "I was once taught that power means control," he said. "That silence keeps you safe. That love is leverage." He paused. "I was wrong." The room didn't move. "I won't pretend the past didn't happen," Elias continued. "I made choices that protected systems instead of people. I benefited from structures that broke others." His grip tightened slightly around Nya's hand. But I choose differently now. He turned fully to her. Nya was never something to save, he said. She was the truth I avoided and the courage I learned from. Today isn't about erasing scars. It's about standing honestly with them. Nya stepped forward. Her voice didn't shake. I was told my silence would keep peace, she said. It didn't. Speaking cost me comfort, safety, and certainty, but it gave me myself back. She looked at Elias, and for the first time I'm choosing partnership, not protection. A breath passed, then applause, slow at first, then full. Not loud, real. Elias reached into his pocket, not for a ring but for the old one, the symbol of a past promise. He held it up. This ring once represented ownership, he said. Today it represents release. He placed it gently on the table between them. Not destroyed, not hidden, acknowledged. Nya smiled, soft, genuine. That's enough, she said. They turned to face the room together. No vows shouted, no grand declarations, just presence, just truth. As the moment settled, Elias glanced toward the camera, because some stories deserve to be witnessed. Thank you for staying with us through this journey, he said. If this story moved you, challenged you, or felt real, support it. Like, subscribe, share it with someone who believes accountability matters more than power. Nya squeezed his hand. This story isn't about winning, she added. It's about choosing honesty, especially when it costs. The lights warmed, voices returned, life continued, and the lesson lingered quietly in the room. Power fades, silence breaks, but truth, once chosen, changes everything.